All right, let's just snap out of our corporate complacency for a minute here and take a hard look at what genuine innovation actually looks like. Look, real innovation, it's incredibly exciting, but that constant, endless, me too copying we see every single day, that is genuinely frustrating. So in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly why this happens, and more importantly, how you can actually break the cycle. Just picture walking down a busy commercial street right here in Nairobi. You look left, there's a bank branch. Look right, an insurance office. Look up, and there's a glowing digital billboard. It's an incredibly crowded market where absolutely everyone claims to be an innovator. And yet, they're all delivering the exact same messaging, identical products, and a totally identical user experience.
Which leads me to this. What genuinely new, innovative product has your bank or your insurance company introduced in the last 3 years? I'm just going to let that hang for a second. Because if we're being brutally honest, for most sectors, the answer is very little that's actually new. We are totally surrounded by organizations that are just hoping doing the exact same thing will somehow magically yield a different result.
Instead of real breakthroughs, we just get endless copycatting. Competitor A launches a digital youth app. Boom, suddenly competitor B has one too. Competitor A rolls out AI-assisted customer service. Competitor B copies it literally immediately. Someone tries a warm, cuddly rebrand, and within months, the entire sector is warm and cuddly. We really just need to name it directly. This is not innovation. It's a mirror.
Now, despite differentiation being drilled into literally every manager at business school, it almost never happens in practice. Strangely enough, the more enterprises compete, the more they look exactly the same. They just get trapped in this state of almost perfect competition, fighting tooth and nail over the exact same inch of territory. So let's jump into part 1, the innovator's dilemma. To understand why this happens, we have to look at Clayton Christensen's famous framework. This lack of innovation, it's structural. It's not accidental. And here's the crazy part. It isn't bad management that suppresses disruptive thinking. It is exactly the opposite. Good management practice actively suppresses it. Managers are taught to maximize short-term profits and control risk exposure. And by faithfully following those standard practices, major corporations end up completely missing the massive opportunities sitting right under their noses. If you trace the history of actual disruptive innovations, they almost never come from the established market leader. Never. It's always the oddball misfits on the fringe. They start out in what looks like a tiny, unprofitable niche, like early personal computers or AI chips. They start off super unreliable, sure, but they sort out the bugs and eventually move up the value chain to completely displace those well-endowed incumbents. I mean, think about M-Pesa. That didn't come from a traditional retail bank, did it?
This brings us to a really fantastic insight from Edward de Bono. Grasping a profitable insight that everyone else missed absolutely requires stepping out of your comfort zone. You have to ask yourself, are you actually able to take the risk of looking stupid? Because if your company demands that every single idea be perfectly right and risk-free from day one, you're going to end up with no new ideas at all.
Moving on to part 2, the innovation reality check. Okay. It is time to drop the beautifully formatted strategy documents and hold a mirror up to what your organization actually does day to day. Ask yourself directly right now, what major assumptions about your business have actually been challenged in the last 12 months? What customer problems are you solving that your competitors are totally ignoring? And honestly, how often is genuine innovation actually discussed in your leadership meetings versus just day-to-day operational survival? And if you want the ultimate truth teller, well, here it is. What percentage of your revenue comes from products, services, or business models introduced in the last 3 years? This single metric cuts through all the corporate jargon, all the fluff. It tells you exactly how many new ideas are actually being generated, tested, and implemented. Let's take this audit a step further into your operations. I want you to make each of these questions land as a direct challenge to your own internal processes. Do your staff actually feel psychologically safe proposing an unconventional idea? How are those weird ideas captured and evaluated? Is there a formal test and learn process, or do ideas just go to die in some committee? Because true innovation isn't a buzzword. It is a hard, structured mechanism. Building that mechanism requires a massive mindset shift. William McKnight, he was the original force behind 3M, he warned against putting fences around people. If you want those huge market capture ideas, you have to listen to the absurd. You have to let people roam way outside the traditional operational fences. Let's get into part 3, escaping perfect competition. So how do we escape this trap? For that, we turn to the controversial but highly effective philosophy of Peter Thiel, early investor in Facebook and co-founder of Palantir. Thiel has this wonderfully blunt phrase: competition is for losers. He views perfect competition not as some ideal economic state, but as a completely disruptive force. Identical firms just undercut each other, entirely annihilating profits. Businesses are forced to focus solely on daily survival, leaving zero capital for long-term innovation. You're basically looking at two distinct realities here. In survival mode, you have copycat markets. Think restaurants, hotels, or PSV insurance. These businesses are trapped. They're battling for localized market share on razor-thin margins, relying on cheap gimmicks just to stand out. But on the flip side, you have 0-to-1 entities like Google or M-Pesa. They create so much value that they no longer have to compete. The goal is not to compete better, it is to make competition entirely irrelevant through genuine differentiation.
Thiel basically redefines the word monopoly here. We normally think of an illegal predatory entity, right? But in his framework, a monopoly is simply a company so uniquely differentiated, whether that's through proprietary technology, network effects, or scale, that it just owns its market. It sets its own prices and actually has the profit margins to reinvest in the future. The goal isn't to fight incumbents mindlessly in a crowded grid. The goal is to go from 0 to 1.
Now, of course, building a 0-to-1 company requires navigating cycles of success and, often hidden failure. But avoiding failure entirely, that just means you are playing it way too safe. It means you're stuck in survival mode, mindlessly copying competitors rather than doing anything genuinely innovative. Which brings us to our final section, part 4, your innovation scorecard. Look, it's time to stop the Me Too copying. So I have a two-part invitation for you today. First, if you want to know exactly how effectively your organization turns ideas into profitable products and services, go take the free Innovation Diagnostic Scorecard at catalyst-ccbc.scoreapp.com. Then, the broader conversation. If those results make you a bit uncomfortable, if they prompt a need for a deeper discussion about escaping this competition trap, the team at Catalyst is ready to talk. Just visit them at www.catalyst.co.ke. I'm going to leave you with this final thought for your next management meeting. Really look at the products you've launched in the last 3 years. Look at the margins you are fighting over. Are you simply surviving the competition, or are you ready to make it irrelevant? Assess your actual innovation metrics and decide if you are ready to stop copying and start creating.